Welcome to CSI Iowa. I'm your host, Bob Montserrat. Matt Montserrat's in the production booth. Tonight, we are going to talk to my guest, Tom Boeckmann, who happened to be deployed to Oklahoma City back in 1995, and that was April 19th, 1995. And we're going to talk about his experiences here today on the show because, as you know, CSI Iowa features many people with various different experiences. And Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bob. Pleasure to be here and looking forward to visiting with you.
Yes, and I know that you watch the shows too when you're not here on the show.
I sure do.
You're watching the shows, so that's pretty awesome. Why don't you, before we get into talking about the Oklahoma City bombing, why don't you tell us about what you do in your life, what's your occupation, and so forth.
Okay. I've been with the Iowa Department of Public Health since 1988, and first went to work in the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services, was a EMS coordinator for the Bureau, and became the investigator for EMS. And then after September 11th, everyone's life changed, mine included, and went to the Center for Disaster Operations and Response. So I've been with the department real close to 24 years. Prior to that, I was in law enforcement.
But you're also on a federal team also, correct?
Yeah, I'm the administrative officer for the Iowa 1 Disaster Medical Assistance Team, which is based in Iowa City.
And that's known as a DMAT?
Correct. DMAT, it's part of the National Disaster Medical System.
And so you've been deployed through the feds to various disasters.
Sure have.
And how about the state? Has the state sent you on disasters? I mean, in-state, probably, yes.
You know, anytime we have something in-state, I am assigned to the Emergency Operations Center.
Oh, so you have the boring job.
Dodge. So I do have the boring job, absolutely.
Okay. But has the state sent you out of state?
You know, the very first deployment was the big one, and that was April 19th of 95.
So the state sent you
Yes, I went as a state employee.
Okay, but you were also on a DMAT team at that time, or no?
No, was not.
Okay, no. So the state offered our services through you and other people.
Yeah, it kind of came about in a roundabout way. I was teaching a class in Washington, Iowa on April 19th, and somebody came into the class and said there had been an explosion of some sort. They were watching it on the news, and throughout the day during the breaks, we would go into the dispatch center and watch TV just to see what was going on. And that evening, I just couldn't help but think about an acquaintance who was a sergeant on the police department in Oklahoma City by the name of Vernon Baker. Vernon and I had met about a year prior at a national Critical Incident Stress Foundation training, and just thought about him throughout the day and wondered how he was doing, physically and emotionally. And so just gave him a call that evening, just see how he was doing. He said, we really need some help down here. And I said, tell me what we can do. And he said, we need a debriefing team. And that kind of started the ball rolling. And at that time, I was the coordinator for the Iowa Critical Incident Stress Network, and made a few phone calls, and about 36 hours later, 21 of us were headed to Oklahoma City.
That's interesting because I remember I took training in 1989, the Jeff Mitchell, George Everly training here in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. You may have been there.
Yep, I sure was.
And so we, and when I say we, Margie Conrad and I put this team together with the Red Cross. And in 1992, we were sent to Florida for the Hurricane Andrew. Yes. And the state sent us. So that, I find that to be pretty cool that they sent you in 1995 to do the debriefings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was kind of a strange way to be deployed, but I believe it was very effective. We were down there for 2 weeks and said our goodbyes, knowing that we probably would never see many of the people again unless our paths would cross 20 years later. And after we got home, we got a call the fifth day that we were home. Vernon called back and said, we need you back down here. So we went for another 2-week deployment. So we were there for 4 weeks out of 5.
So you were back for a week, and then you went.
We were home for 5 days and went
5
back
days.
for another 2 weeks.
Now, you know that probably breaks all the rules of doing
It
debriefings.
sure does.
And yet you were still willing to do it.
Yeah. We created a bond, if you will, that was really hard to describe. We wanted to make sure that the people that we spoke with in the debriefings knew that we were not there to tell them how to do their job. We were not there to be a tourist and take pictures and things like that. We were really there to help them. And it really took that first week to gain their trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it was important for them that the same group came back a week after we departed, because we had built that trust.
Right, absolutely. And we know that for emergency workers, and you know that too, being one, that trust is important, and you
Absolutely.
just can't talk to anyone. And when you think about mental health people or psychologists, that's kind of that's a bad word for any emergency worker.
Sure is, especially cops.
Especially. And so but you're right, in order to build that trust, there has to be that effort, and it's a great effort to put into it to do that. Now, obviously, everybody knows what happened in Oklahoma City back then, and did you get a chance to see any of the devastation?
Yeah, we sure did. We were right there at ground zero, if you will. Initially, like I said, it took about a week to build the trust. And what we did that first week is kind of hung out at the police department. Oklahoma City PD is well known for a program called CHAPS, Cops Helping Alleviate Police Problems. And it's a group within the department to assist officers primarily for officer-involved shootings. And it kind of evolved as the program got going, and turned into what we would now call a wellness program. And it was a vehicle, if you will, for the officers to vent some frustrations and be able to talk to their peers. And so that first week, we kind of hung out in the CHAPS office, and as people came in, we would just visit. During the night shift, we would get some pitchers of coffee and some styrofoam cups and just walk around the perimeter, just offering coffee to the officers doing traffic control. These are the officers who were the initial responders and worked at ground zero until the resources came from around the country. We tried to be very non-threatening and just say, hey, we're from Iowa. We're part of the Critical Incident Stress Network there in Iowa. How about a cup of coffee? You need anything else? And it started out like that. And after the second or third night, the officers really started talking. And I think they knew that it was somebody that they could confide in, that we were there for them.
Mm-hmm. How many people went from the team here?
21 people from Iowa, primarily from the Dubuque, Waterloo, and Sioux City areas.
Okay, and did you have mental health people on the team?
Yeah, we sure did. As you know, and many reviewers know, that a critical incident stress team is kind of strategically put together so that you have the proper peers, but you also have that mental health or psychology component to help facilitate and guide those debriefings. So we did have that component, as well as police officers, firefighters, dispatchers. We tried to cover every discipline.
Mm-hmm. At what point did you actually look at the devastation yourself?
We got a tour the first day that we arrived. We arrived on the 21st, the morning of the 21st. So, they were 36 hours into the incident at that point. And so that was quite an eye-opener for us. We had seen the devastation on TV, but to actually be there to to see the sights and hear the sounds and smell the odors, and really drove home to us the immense complexity of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that when you see devastation like that, it could impact you too.
Sure can. Sure can.
And I don't know if you saw any of the victims, or that, because I'm sure after that amount of time they still had people that were buried in there.
Sure did. And the one thing that I'll probably never forget is the compassion shown by the responders. When they would have a recovery, work pretty much came to a standstill. They just showed a great deal of respect for the deceased, treated them with utmost dignity. That really struck a chord with me, I guess. We knew we were going into the Bible Belt, going to Oklahoma City, but it was very apparent that we were right in the buckle of that Bible Belt. And the folks there just, it was unbelievable, the integrity that they had.
Did you work like in a family assistance center, or how did they have it set up for you?
We did not. Ours was set up so that as the shifts were going through working in the rubble, as they would come out, the only way that they could be released was to come through a debriefing. So it kind of became routine for the firefighters, especially. They knew that they had to come in and go through a debriefing before they were off shift. And after the first 3-4 times, they knew the program, they knew the agenda, if you will, on how debriefings are conducted. And by the time we left during that first deployment, we didn't even have to facilitate. They knew exactly what the procedure was. And we had baseball caps at Iowa CISD, and we were quickly known as CISD was come in, sit down. And they would come off shift, sit down, go through a debriefing, exchange the hugs and the handshakes, and they would be on their way.
So when you went back, after you took 5 days off, were the same people there, or did you have a different crew?
The outside resources had all changed, and the scene had changed drastically. There was a large weather change in that week that we were gone. It was much warmer. The rubble pile had certainly been whittled down, but the key people within Oklahoma City police and fire organizations were still there, and that's something else that all of us commented on was it was their scene. They were going to make sure that it was an Oklahoman taking care of their own, and it certainly helped drive home to us the integrity of those departments.
Were you working alongside debriefers from Oklahoma also?
Kind of sporadically. It kind of depended on what shift we were working, and also what the situation was at hand. So there were some folks from Oklahoma. The second deployment, there were some CISM teams from across the nation. But again, going back to that trust thing, we were kind of the front line, if you will, just because we had developed that rapport with the responders.
Now, how, when you're in that situation, and you obviously you were seeing the rubble, you were right there, correct?
Throughout the deployment, we had set up a couple blocks away in a Southwestern Bell building, and that's where the debriefings were conducted. So we didn't spend a lot of time in the rubble. We had done a tour, and some of the team members were actually doing mini debriefings, if you will, right at the scene. But primarily our work was off-site.
Were you strictly with the emergency service people?
Yes, we were.
Okay, so others would have other people to deal.
Yeah,
or help them.
The Red Cross had a fantastic response to that incident, and just really did a marvelous job of taking care of families and residents.
What of the people there? I'm assuming they were telling you what impacted them, what happened, what their job was, what their role was, what they saw, and what they were seeing. Are there any of those stories, something that sticks out in your mind of what they experienced?
I think the common theme was that if it can happen in Oklahoma City, it can happen anywhere. We heard that time and time again. The heartland of America had the largest terrorist event at that time.
Kind of couldn't believe it. It was kind of something like it was unbelievable.
It was surreal. And during our second deployment, while we were deployed, the rescuer from Waco, Texas, Midland, Texas, the baby Jessica in the well.
Right.
You remember that case?
Yes.
That rescuer committed suicide during our deployment in Oklahoma City. And a lot of the rescuers talked about that. That really bothered them. That this is someone that was in the spotlight by virtue of doing his day-to-day job, doing what any one of those other firefighters would do.
Right.
And took his own life as a result of the stress from that
the
single
attention
incident. Yeah.
Well, the attention that he received,
Yes.
the fact that he was being called a hero.
Yep.
For doing his job.
Yeah.
And yes, I remember that specifically.
Yeah, we heard that a lot from the rescuers, that they were really concerned about that. The other thing that we heard a lot of was many of the rescuers were torn between knowing that they had a job to do, but yet they wanted to make sure that they were adequately taking care of their own families, especially the rescuers with children. And many of them expressed to us, they almost felt guilty for ignoring their own families because there was work to do. That's what they were trained to do. And, they had to make that choice.
Right. How about the fact that the person that attacked us was a U.S. citizen? It wasn't a terrorist from outside the country, but it was our own, one of our own.
We heard that frequently, that it was one of our own. And again, it was somewhat hard to believe. But once again, going back to the integrity of those rescuers, we heard time and time again, we have a job to do. Let justice be served. Let somebody else take care of that. We have victims, and we need to take care of them and their families. And, that was very heartwarming, knowing that they really were focused on taking care of the response to which they were there for, and letting the justice system sort out everything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, we need to take a break now, and when we come back, Tom, I'd like to maybe talk about some of the impact on the team, and what the team, how they responded to this particular situation, and their own thoughts and their own reactions. So you're listening to CSI Iowa on webcast1live.com, and we'll be back after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at policestore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios. Listen, watch, chat. This is Webcast One Live. Programs on webcast1live.com are brought to you in part by KDC Builders, building custom homes for how you live. KDC will take your dreams and turn them into reality. Go to our website, kdcbuilt.com, or call Hannah Inman at 515-975-9990. And Tom Coates and ConsumerCreditOfAmerica.com. Are you overwhelmed with mounted credit card debt and feel there's no way out? Well, there is. Call 1-800-955-5765 for Consumer Credit of America. That's ccofamerica.com.
Welcome back to CSI Iowa. My guest tonight is Tom Boeckmann, and on your card that you gave me, it says HAN Chief. What's HAN?
Yeah. HAN is the Health Alert Network. It's a notification tool that we use at the health department, and actually all of the state agencies use to notify people of an incident, whatever that may be. All of the hospitals and local public health agencies and many other agencies in local government, as well as all of the state departments, are on the system. So it's a simple click of the mouse to notify everyone of what's going on.
That's something
used
happened
extensively.
Okay.
It's as a result of September 11th.
And that's part of your job through the Iowa Department of Public Health?
Yes, I manage that and a statewide radio system, which connects all of the hospitals and local public health agencies.
Okay. And now, are you also are you a paramedic?
I am.
You are a paramedic, and so that's your skills through the DMAT program.
That's correct.
And so you've been out there in the pits and in the bad situations trying to help people.
Sure have.
What are some of those that you've been out on?
My very first federal deployment with the Disaster Medical Assistance Team was Hurricane Ike, and I learned about 2 hours before I knew I was, or 2 hours after I learned I was going on that deployment, I found out I was going to be the commander. So I had some baptism by fire there, but it turned out to be a wonderful experience. And you know, there's nothing more gratifying than knowing you help somebody on the absolute worst day of their life.
Sure, absolutely.
What a rewarding experience.
Katrina was that another one you went to?
Spent my time in the Iowa Emergency Operations Center during Katrina because we were receiving displaced residents.
Oh, so you had to
spend a lot of time out at the Emergency Operations Center and the
there you
Iowa
go
State
again.
Fairgrounds. So if it impacts Iowa, I'm here.
Oh, that's too bad. No,
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. We need you here. There's no question there. Okay, getting back to Oklahoma City. You know, when you're listening to people tell you these heart-wrenching things that are going on within them, and when they trust you, they're going to open up.
Sure do.
And really tell you, you know, what's the worst thing for them, or what's, you know, if there was something they could take away from their experience, and then they just pour their hearts out to you. And when that happens, you're taking it in.
Yep.
You know, and so how did the team deal with that secondary trauma?
You know, we were very well aware of how easily we could be drawn into the situation. And we had a debriefing amongst ourselves every night. And we made sure that as a team, we got totally away from the incident. We got totally away from the scene and went out and did other things. The first 2 weeks that we were there, there was no lodging anywhere in Oklahoma City, and we actually stayed in the Oklahoma County Jail. That was our quarters for 2 weeks, so we were known as the Iowa Jailbirds.
Ugh.
And it's amazing, a city the size of Oklahoma City, the residents knew about the Iowa Jailbirds. And I can't tell you how many times we would go out for dinner in the evening, and we'd get up at the end of eating, and somebody had picked up our tab, or the proprietor of the restaurant would say, "Nope, it's on me." Or the times that we would go into a store to buy rain gear or toiletries, things like that, and they would absolutely refuse payment. So, you know, we tried to get out. We tried to remove ourselves from the physical scene and get out in the community a little bit, but it was still ever present, especially at night. You know, they had the high intensity lights at the scene because they were working 24/7. So it was hard to totally remove yourself, but I think we did a very good job on debriefing amongst ourselves. One of the debriefings that we did with the firefighters, a comment was made that kind of became our motto, if you will. Somebody said during one of those debriefings, you know, it takes something bad to realize something good, you know, and a good thing comes out of all bad situations, as we were talking about earlier before the show. And somebody quickly responded to that saying, you know, the good is always there. It takes something bad for you to realize the good is there. And that kind of became our theme amongst ourselves is, you know, the good is always there, and it's going to take something much greater than a bombing and the death of 168 people to take that away from us, because there are so many wonderful people that we met during that deployment. And I think that really is what kept us going. And the camaraderie and the bonding and closeness that we had with the team certainly made an impact as well.
And it probably got to a point that when you finally left and probably knew that you would not return, there had to be this emotional response of leaving these people that you bonded with so much.
Absolutely. You know, when we left after that first 2 weeks, we figured we would never see those people again unless it were, you know, like I said earlier, 20 years down the road. We certainly had no idea we'd be back in 5 days. When we left then after that second 2-week deployment, that really was the finality. You know, that final chapter in the book is now closed. And it was very difficult to say our goodbyes. The night before we left, one of the officers with Oklahoma City Police Department, a guy by the name of Brandon, who had just joined the department, he's 21 years old. He said to me, we were in a roundtable discussion, and he said, you know, you people from Iowa have given us the shirt off your back, and I want to do the same, and gave me a uniform shirt. You know, and I accepted that because I knew that it was some closure for him. You know, it was a small token of his appreciation, but it was something that he could give back. And I think things like that are very important for the healing process. And it's those types of things and those emotions that trigger that healing process to get them on the right track and get their lives back in order and continue doing the good things they've always done.
Now, when you were down there, you picked up some souvenirs or gifts and things like that.
You know, I just brought a few of them. It seemed like every day there was a group of children, not near the site, but in the outer perimeter. I'm sure your viewers recall the daycare center on the first floor of the Murrah building. So there was a death of a considerable amount of children. And so kind of a central theme to help the grieving process for the residents was the kids. And so I just brought a few things here that mostly children were handing to us as we were going to our workstations. Just tokens of appreciation, a lot of buttons, handprints on laminated paper were kind of a big thing. And again, it just really helps the healing process, the grieving process, and getting that community back on track. The one thing that I did bring with me, and I keep it on my desk, and it is a piece of the Murrah building. And, you know, it's been through the FBI check, if you will. We know there's no trace evidence on it.
Oh, okay.
It's been checked. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly a constant reminder of how quickly things can change. You know, somebody's life can be changed 180 degrees in 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a token of appreciation for someone who was working at the scene, and you know, just really serves as a reminder to me of how precious life is. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I brought along, you know, a lot of books were published after the incident, and I've read a lot of them. A lot of them are pictorial documentaries. But I think the book that impacted me the most was, I got to see which camera I'm on here, this one, Where Was God at 9:02 a.m.? That question was answered during our first debriefing. You know, we tend to think in responding to a situation like this, how could something like this happen? And for those that have the faith, and those believers sometimes question that faith and say, you know, how could God let this happen? And we heard time and time again that it happened because it was supposed to. It's not our decision to decide why things happen, but it's our response to those situations that makes the difference. So, you know, where was God at 9:02 a.m.? You know, he was beside every emergency worker doing their job. He was with us as we were traveling to Oklahoma City. You know, and that certainly had a huge impact, I believe, on our entire team. I think every one of us came back a much stronger person, emotionally, spiritually. I think it made us better responders, made us better parents. You know, so a lot of good did come out of that. Or, as I said earlier, it made us realize the good. So, you know, these little tokens were very important for us as well. It just serves as that reminder of how precious life is.
Right. And how is this something that you probably haven't seen these for a while?
You know, when I talked to you a few weeks ago about being on the show, you know, my initial reaction was, wow, I haven't talked about Oklahoma City for a long time. Certainly, you know, right after we got back, I think every one of the 21 people who responded were on the little speaking circuit, talking to Kiwanis clubs and Lions clubs and church groups. And I hadn't talked about Oklahoma City for a long time. My wife and I went to Oklahoma City last year and went to the museum for the very first time. And that really invokes some memories. You know, I was almost disoriented when I got there, trying to figure out where things were, and really brought back a lot of some things that I didn't want to come back. Right. But it also brought back that feeling of you know, being a part of helping someone cope.
Right, the recovery.
Yeah. So digging through that box after I talked to you, got a large tote in my office with all my Oklahoma City stuff, and just going through those things, looking at the roster of the 21 people from Iowa who kind of lost contact with some of those people. And
you never thought you would.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. At the time, you know, you think, oh, we're going to be best friends forever and we're going to talk every day. And life has other plans, other things happen. And, you know, just looking through that roster of the 21 people, 2 of them are no longer with us. You know, and life goes on. And we don't understand why things happen, but it was good for me to go back through that box and look at some of those things to kind of rejuvenate me a little bit on knowing that we as responders in the state are doing some great things, and we are making a difference.
Well, we need to take another break, and I guess I have another question to ask you when we come back from break. Well, I'm saying another. It's probably more than just another. But you're listening to CSI Iowa on Webcast One Live, and don't forget to go to my Facebook page on, and it's called simply CSI Iowa, and all the shows are archived there. So we'll be back with Tom Boeckmann after this commercial break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of duty gear for military, law enforcement, and security professionals. PoliceStore.com has a great selection of high-quality and dependable police supplies, all backed by Brownell's 100% unconditional lifetime guarantee. The Brownells Training Group offers firearms training for military, police, professional security, and qualified citizens taught by professionals who are recognized for their knowledge and real experience. Check us out today at PoliceStore.com/CSI.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios. Listen, watch, chat. This is Webcast One Live. Programs on webcastonelive.com are brought to you in part by KDC Builders, building custom homes for how you live. KDC will take your dreams and turn them into reality. Go to our website, kdcbuilt.com, or call Hannah Inman at 515-975-9990. And Tom Coates and ConsumerCreditOfAmerica.com. Are you overwhelmed with mounted credit card debt and feel there's no way out? Well, there is. Call 1-800-955-5765 for Consumer Credit of America. That's ccofamerica.com.
Welcome back to CSI Iowa. My guest tonight, Tom Boeckmann, and he's the HON Chief, which you already explained, for the Iowa Department of Public Health. And but we've been talking about Oklahoma City and a lot of your experiences with the debriefing process, helping people deal with the stressors that they experienced on that. And whenever anyone goes out on disaster, you expect that it's going to impact you in some way. I know you know that. I know that. Some people that may be new to doing that kind of work may not know that or understand it. And we're trying to enlighten people by going out and talking about stressful situations and telling them what they might expect. And so I think part of going out on these disasters, and I was at 9/11 in New York, and one thing I remember was that when I went to the Family Assistance Center, along the wall it had photos of all of the people that were missing, I looked at the floor and I saw bears all along that wall, and it was a huge wall because there were a lot of people that were missing. And those bears came from the Oklahoma City families. And I remember that. And I wasn't in Oklahoma City, couldn't do that. But I remember the bears when I went to New York, and immediately I thought about, Oklahoma City. And so there are different things that we experience even when we go as helpers that stick with us. And I wouldn't necessarily say haunt us, but it's something that we always remember that impacted us probably the most. And one thing, and I'll ask you that, but I think one thing that I've learned on being on disaster and seeing people hurting and suffering is that I've learned to not sweat, the small stuff. Yeah, does that sound familiar?
It sure does. Yeah. At the time of the Murrah building bombing, I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old at home. And it helped me kind of put my perspective on life and my role as a father in order. You don't sweat the small stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of difficult at first because I'm a very type A guy, and every responder is. But when you respond to things like that, as I said earlier, people are having the absolute worst day of their life, and we are able to put aside the little things in our lives that maybe bring us down and help those people cope a little bit. And you really don't sweat the small stuff because, the good is always there. We just don't look for it until something bad happens.
Mm-hmm. How did you see a change in your life? Is that, now, did you say that was the first, that wasn't the first deployment, but it was the first large scale?
Yeah, it was certainly the first large scale. Yeah.
And I know you've been on others since then, but so since it was a large scale, it probably, how did you see change in your own life from before that incident to after, as far as your home life or your work life after that?
I served in law enforcement on a couple small departments, Marengo Police Department and the Benton County Sheriff's Department. And when we would have those bad calls, if you will, the normal response for officers at that time was, if you can't deal with it, get out. And I think that my response to the Murrah building really helped me understand that there is nothing wrong with admitting that you're just having a little tough time dealing with this. Admitting that you are having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. It really is okay for men to cry. Mm-hmm. It's okay for somebody who is hurting, whether it be emotionally or physically, to receive a hug. It's quite okay to spill your guts once in a while to someone who may be a stranger to you, but yet you know that you can confide in them. And I think it was those types of things that really changed me. It also changed me spiritually in that prior to April 19th of 95, I just could not get myself to ask for prayer for myself. And I had a tough time dealing with that.
Because you felt like, hey, if I need prayer, I can do it myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And other people are much worse off than I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't need anybody to help me.
You're right. I can do it. I'm a tough
there.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that anybody who assists at events such as this comes back a stronger person and better understands kind of the big picture, if you will, that individually we're pretty insignificant, but when we all come together for a common good, making sure that these families had closure in Oklahoma City, for example. It helps you better understand what your real role is in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When obviously, as you know, I'm on the DMORT team, and we love you DMAT guys too, because you help us.
Good.
You take care of us when we're out there doing that work. And when I get called, what I find myself doing when I see a large scale disaster or whatever the case is, I know we're going. We went. I didn't personally go, but our team went to Joplin. Mm-hmm. DMORT 7 went down to Joplin, and we had I knew everybody that was there. But when the disaster strikes and I know that we're going to be deployed, my first reaction is, I don't want to go. Now, is that just me? I mean, I say that to myself, and I don't want to do it, but I do it.
Yep. I certainly say that to myself, too. This time of year, I'm a Weather Channel junkie. Just watching the tropical storms and tropical depressions and seeing what it might bring. And your gut is telling you, no, I don't want to do this.
Because you know what's going to be down
Absolutely. But yet you get that, I don't think it's really an adrenaline rush, but you just get that feeling of, we can make a difference. We really can do some good. And you come back from a deployment just a different person, because you know that you really did make a difference in someone's life.
And that makes you say yes, even though your initial reaction is, I don't want to do this.
Yep.
Because of the fact that you want to help. And that's why we do what we do, is because you want to make a difference, a positive difference in a person's life that's hurting, that you can. But you also understand that it's going to take a toll on you in a certain way.
Sure does.
That you find, and when I say you, I'm talking about me, you find yourself being more emotional sometimes on situations that you experience, and you're going, what's wrong with me? I guess I'm not that tough macho guy that I thought I was. And yet you're drawn to, continue to help people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you really don't know how you're going to react or what the long-lasting effects will be. Something that I have thought about a lot over the last 17 years, and it's certainly psychological, and I know it is. But on that first 2-week deployment, I had a beard and mustache. And I came home from that first 2 weeks, and the first thing I did was shaved, and I haven't grown facial hair since. And it was all psychological. I could smell the scene, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. It was the smell of diesel fuel and the smell of stagnant water, because it's springtime and lots of rain and it was warm, and I just couldn't get the smell of the scene out of my mind. Mm-hmm. And so obviously that odor was not in my mustache, but the first thing I did when I got home was shaved, and I can't grow facial hair since,
because you're associating
that
you
just don't know how you're going to react. Mm-hmm. It's those little things that you just say, why is that?
Yeah. And so you stay away from that, because that is a reminder.
It sure is.
Of where you were and what you were sensing, and so it's normal to want to avoid that.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because I didn't do that, but that didn't affect me in that way.
Right.
But in other ways, we can say that we were affected by it. And I even like to say after, this was 232, because I was out there in 1989, but I used to watch, at that time, it was Rescue 911, I think, or something like that. One of those shows. And I loved it. And then when I came back from Sioux City, couldn't watch it. And my wife would say, hey, Rescue 911 is on. I'm going, I can't watch it. I cannot go in there and take that anymore.
Yep.
And I never would watch, and that's how it was affecting me. Yeah. I could not watch another rescue show for a long, long time.
Yeah. And responses like this, I don't think have had any effect on me on patient care as a paramedic. If I'm in a bad situation on an EMS call, I don't have flashbacks. It's just those strange things like the facial hair that just you can't explain.
Right. You can't explain, but you can say it's normal.
Right. Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, and you're not going out of your mind. And I know some people think, yeah, I am. I'm going nuts, and I'm going to leave the service, and that's what we're trying to prevent.
Absolutely. As we were talking to the officers and firefighters in Oklahoma City, many of them would ask, how is this going to affect me? We don't know that. But there was a lot of concern about divorce, alcoholism, early retirement, disability, physical problems as a result of the response. And these responders are not only dealing with the present, but they're also thinking about the future. As we spoke about earlier, the rescuer with baby Jessica, that certainly weighs heavy on their minds as they're doing their job. And I just really believe that being able to talk about their experiences and going through that debriefing process and knowing that it's okay, you're having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation, they're going to be fine. They're going to get through it. And we're going to keep those officers on the streets. We're going to keep those firefighters on the engines to keep doing what they're doing because they're trained, they're devoted.
They're needed.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
and certainly needed.
Absolutely needed. And a lot of times I'll tell people in debriefings that not anybody can do the job you do.
That's right.
You can't just walk off the street and do this kind of thing and survive it.
Yep.
And yet more and more people are surviving, emergency service work.
Sure.
And that's what we need, to do. And Oklahoma City, I think, was, for many people, quite a wake-up call. And I know people that were hospitalized because of the stressors that they needed to, they couldn't let go, and finally they broke down. And I think in many of the disasters we hear the same things repeated over and over again. And that's why what you did and having the CISM teams are essential. And, years ago, like you were saying, you got to tough it out.
Yep.
If you don't like it, get out. And yet you're losing good people, which is what we don't want to do.
Right.
So, and when you left Oklahoma City after your second deployment there, did you think to yourself that you could ever forget anything that you went through and that you experienced?
Not at all. And, as I said earlier, going through that box of mementos and the literal thousands of cards and letters that we received from people in Oklahoma City, it certainly brought back a lot of memories. And
that you did forget.
That I did forget, that I never thought I would.
Yes.
But I had forgotten about those things. And it just really impacted me when I was doing that there are so many good people in this world. And we let the media sometimes control our lives because we just see the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's so much good out there. And we need to focus on that, and we're going to do okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, these hours kind of go fast, so we're at the end of the show, and I appreciate the fact that you were there, Oklahoma City. I wasn't able to go. I was called to go at that time, but and I mentioned this earlier, but at that time, April 19th, 1995, my mother died from ovarian cancer, and it was quite shocking at the time, and I was torn. Obviously, of course, I went to my mother's funeral, but it was one of those where I want to help these other people too, but it looks like I need help myself at this point. So I'm glad you were there, obviously, to do what needed to be done, and I'm glad they were Iowa teams that went down there too.
I went with 20 wonderful people from across the state, and was very proud to represent this state in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other reality is we know that these disasters aren't going to end.
That's right.
And so, but our job, and I'm speaking about both of our jobs, is to maintain and keep as many people on the job as we can, by doing what we do, by helping others, by doing the debriefing, by going out and being on a DMORT, DMAT, and all those teams.
Right.
So hopefully the audience out there has learned something about critical incident stress management by today's talk. So
good deal.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming. And we may have you back for another exciting thing that you've been into. We'll see.
Sounds good.
All right. Anyway, you've been watching CSI Iowa on Webcast One Live. And again, remember, all these shows are archived on my Facebook page, CSI Iowa. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
At the BrownellsPoliceStore.com, we specialize in a full line of